there's like a bazillion frameworks, models, and systems that kick around the L&D industry, and they all promise the same holy grail of learning that transforms behaviors and drives performance. Now, that has led to many well-intentioned practitioners I've worked with believing that a good L&D operator and leader is only about building great learning experiences and products with those tools. Unfortunately, they're wrong, because it's about also knowing how to navigate your business to deliver the outcomes it wants. What the courses, the accreditations, and all the experts can't tell you are your organization's culture, its constraints, and its context. Now, knowing these three is instrumental to any success that you will have. I actually learned this the hard way. I naively thought my output was all based on how good my learning experiences were. And I was wrong as well, because no one really cared about that in organizations. What they did care about was performance and building useful skills. And to do that, and to do it well, I needed to understand the 3 C's of my organization. So let's talk a bit about those in more detail. So first up is culture. And I've always found culture to be a bit of a strange thing. Companies believe it's something they control. They spend millions to shape it by rolling out EVPs, values frameworks, ping pong tables, you name it, they'll do it. For you, culture plays an important part in what you can deliver as an L&D team or operator or a leader. Now, I'm going to frame culture for L&D here as the understanding of what is learning in the modern age. Now, stick with me. I know it's a fickle topic. Everyone has their own take, and I'm sure some of you will murder me in the comments, but we'll give it a try. So I learned early in my career that if I was building amazing digital solutions, but my company culture viewed learning as the traditional education model of classrooms, that I wasn't going to succeed. You know, there were some times that I felt I could bring the Mona Lisa of L&D experiences, but my audience will always be like, why aren't we together in the same room so we can have fun? Where's the free lunch? I don't feel like we've learned if we haven't been together to do this. You probably know that pain too. So in any large organization, you have to appreciate the culture towards L&D. And this is something really you should be doing on day one when you land somewhere. And if you haven't, you definitely need to be doing that now. Because a lot of this means unpacking the understanding of workplace learning today. I've already said for most organizations, it is the education model. They look at the school model, and that's the model that continues to be repeated in most corporate organizations because, you know, why not? A lot of these people don't know any other alternative. It's cheap. People know it already, and they'll go with it. There's familiarity. But half the time, that's not going to work for performance. You know this, but they don't. That's a very important distinction. And what you can't do is go in all guns blazing to try and change this overnight, because it's not going to happen. And you probably will get sacked. So definitely don't do that. Now, what I found is 90% of the time, stakeholders want to tell you the solution to their problem. And this has been a constant across the nearly 2 decades I've spent in the industry. So what I found is that typically stakeholders fall into 2 camps. The first being, I think I have a training problem and I want you, L&D person, to facilitate a classroom workshop. And the second one is usually something along the lines of, I still think I have a training problem. I want you to create a point-and-click e-learning experience because I want something interactive to show off to my team and boss. Now, before you pull your hair out, let's explore why this thinking occurs. Essentially, our education system has brainwashed us to believe that learning anything must be a designated one-time event. Now, naturally, this pours over to the working world. If it's the only system you know, why would you do anything else? The problem is the world of work is not like school. Organizations, most of them, not all of them, still don't see L&D as performance-based. They label it as education, which leads to many believing it's just a nice to have, not a must have. Like I said before, you're not going to walk into a company and change the strategy from here's our list of courses to how can we design the best solution to X problem for this audience. You've got to play the long game. So as hard as it might seem, you're going to have to roll with that for a while. And that's really the first lesson I give anyone when they come to talk to me about this kind of stuff in navigating the corporate game in L&D. So make sure to know the culture of your company deeply, because that's going to enable you to build solutions that fit its current maturity level, not what you think its maturity level should be. And it will also help you on that journey to improve it, because as I say, it's not going to be an overnight makeover. And then the second of our 3Cs is constraints. So this carries on nicely from culture. Once you've understood the culture of the organization, you can then start to map out the constraints. Now, constraints can come in many forms, including debunking traditional ways of knowledge, negotiating delivery methods, order taking versus performance conversations, budgets, resources, environments, attitudes. There's loads of constraints we can put in the list here. L&D teams often have ludicrous demands put on them. We're branded most of the time, I find, as some kind of chameleon-like knowledge center that needs to be experts on performance, well-being, diversity, talent management, why X sucks at doing X, and so forth. It's like being the local information point for your organization. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, those local travel information stores, I think they are, when you go to visit different countries. And we're never going to escape this entirely. You're going to be faced with doing and building products and experiences that you probably aren't going to always agree with. That's part of the game we all play. That doesn't mean you can't change this over time, but don't be a ball in a china shop. You're not going to stop this gigantic system that's in place. Although we love to say, let's disrupt N&D and break the wheel and transform and rewire everything, which I think is good in some aspects and great ambitions. But to do that in an environment as a professional, in the context of your organization and the constraints that you've got, is incredibly difficult. It's very aspirational. It's generally a marketing tagline that we see from vendors who've sometimes never even done the job. So don't feel bad that you aren't achieving certain things if you see these frameworks or systems online and people saying, we've done this and this is what we got. You don't know their context. You don't know their constraints. You don't know what the culture is. And that leads me nicely on to the last of our 3Cs, which is context. Now, context is everything in life, in my opinion. Without context, life can be very, very difficult, as can work. And it's a huge unlock in any work that you do. Building your credibility as an operator or a leader is always going to be supercharged if you can turn around and truly understand people's problems and the environment they're working in, aka their context. That is our role in N&D after all. We are problem solvers. And who doesn't want to be best friends with a problem solver? The point is, the more context you have on what the organization cares about, the better advice you can share as a strategic leader. I've been in rooms where cookie cutter L&D strategies and solutions are recommended every year to the same people, and they all end in the same way. Nothing. They go nowhere. That's all down to not understanding the context of the organization today. And again, let me break that down. When I say context, I specifically mean the current business maturity, the goals of your business. What is it trying to achieve? How can you build in performance in the organization to achieve that? Budgets, resources, capabilities, the different environments of teams. There's not going to be just one environment of the organization. It's going to be these micro environments everywhere. And again, our previous 2 points of culture and constraints, you need to understand those alongside context. And as we've already hit upon, of course, the attitudes and motivations of the workforce for performance. Deeply understanding these elements will set you apart not only as a good L&D operator and leader, but also as a great strategic leader. So maybe it's not always that you created this stellar L&D project or product and it didn't go exactly the way you wanted because the product or project wasn't good enough. Maybe it's because you don't quite understand the context, the constraints, or the culture of your organization to align that project or product, or even if it fits in the first place. As always, friends, I hope that is helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments on where you're viewing this, and I will talk to you in the next one.